Ladies, gentlemen, and young ladies, there's panic at NATO. There's panic on the European side after this inflammatory statement that was made by the Vice President of Parliament, Ukrainian. The Vice President of the Ukrainian Parliament made a statement. It must be said that he is the Vice President of the Parliament Ukrainian National Security Council, Igor Tirnev. So he is not just anyone. He has made a statement in which he announces that Russia is in the process of to organize a breakthrough land tanks to Europe. That is to say that obviously Russia prepares a breakthrough and with his tanks to be able to reach Europe. So in other words, Russia is preparing to wage war on Europe completely. Here is the statement he makes. And this statement, it disrupted the whole of Europe, that disturbed NATO. Imagine that this statement is made at a time when obviously Europe, through the famous coalition of volunteers, is multiplying meetings, emergency meetings to find a solution and cope to the Russian Federation. It was during this time that obviously what are we going to call this? They do release this statement related to the security of Europe. So you understand easily that Kiev is in a logical, make everyone believe Europe that Russia is preparing to hit them. Simply, we saw very recently military exercises which were organized towards the west of the Russia. They considered it to be an exercise to be able to strike Europe. So, of course, yes, there have been activities unusual at the level of Belgorod and etc. Russia is in the process of reorganize at this level. These are the movements that were observed by the satellites and that the services of Ukrainian intelligence have gone back. And the Ukrainian parliament has therefore broadcast information, taking into account the war communication line of Vladimir Zelensky. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the framework of this conference is to this news that we are going to talk about. But before we continue, I ask you humbly to share the conference at maximum. Share in all groups possible. So let's go deep into it. I must say that it is a statement alarmist from the Ukrainian parliament. He is the vice president of the Committee of the Radar for National Security, Igor Tirnev, who claims that Russia accumulates tanks and armored vehicles in several depots in western Russia. The Russia accumulates tanks and blended. That is to say, Russia is in the process of to group together tanks and armored vehicles. And on this part of Russia, where the Russian army is regrouped tanks and armored vehicles, this part is very close to Europe. If Russia wants to penetrate Europe, that would be from there. That's why it's shaking. It's why it's actually shaking. So, according to this gentleman, Moscow is preparing a massive land breakthrough towards Eastern Europe or even towards the Baltic states. So for him, since this part is close, Russia prepares a breakthrough massive landmass. If Russia is to attacking Europe, it will start on the earthly plane. However, Russia has already designated his first enemy, which is the France. The Baltic countries have nothing to do with it that. But as Russia is in the process of make its moves, Russia has replied, we will see why Russia is doing its movements. As Russia is in the process to make his moves there, they are panicked. So on his own territory, Russia cannot to organize. So it must be said that Kiev wants that Europe believes in the imminence of an invasion to maintain the tap of open help. It's a strategy. This is the usual strategy of Volodymyr Zelensky. We all know that this is his usual strategy. We must maintain the pressure so that the tap remains open. Let's continue to send money, that we continue to send the weapons. And as long as the weapons arrive, as long as the money arrives, the conflict continues. Zelensky fills up pockets and businesses, American women also fill their pockets. So the logic behind it is this: maintain Western dependence. As we said, Kiev is trying to provoke a rapid political reaction, more weapons, more funds, more diplomatic support without condition. Because if Europe knows that they themselves are invaded, automatically they will send aid to Ukraine without any condition. So he even went so far far as to present figures. There you go. But these figures that are presented are not based on no independent evidence. The objective is clear. We must force the European Union to further tighten the sanctions against Russia. This is a war communication strategy, as has not failed to be said. So despite the fact that Europeans know that it is a war communication, but it's getting hot in their pants side, they themselves begin to believe truly that Russia is preparing to attack them. They begin to truly believe in that. But what do they have to stop the Russia in case Russia decides to attack them? They don't have these means there. They don't have the means to do it to stop Russia. It is why it's shaking. That's why they are panicked. There you go. So, but the Russia responded. Russia responded. So, according to Russian sources, Russia is not organizing a offensive. According to Russian sources, this is not an imminent offensive, but from recycling old equipment and a logistical ramp up. The materials, the equipment, ancient. That's what streams are recycling, grouping them together, repair, and so on. But these are not the Russian authorities who responded. These are local Russian sources that responded, which gives the information. So Russia is in the process of reorganize, repair its loads, its armored vehicles, give what we're going to call that, equip them with new abilities, technologies that would allow them, obviously, to be really at the cutting edge of modernization. And so the Oral, Belgorod, and Smolensk deposits are reorganized to serve as a base, maintenance, and training. And it is at the level of the deposits that they have given the movements of these Oral deposits, Belgorod, Smolensk. So the sources, Russians, say that these deposits are in being reorganized to serve as maintenance and training base. So Russia is in its maintenance mode, but its scary side on the side of the West. It trembles, it panics until it's the vice president of the Radar Committee for National Security that goes out for Alert Europe. So Russia wants to show one's ability to support a long war. This is why Russia is to reorganize these three different bases. So unlike the West, which is economically exhausted and politically, Russia wants to show that she is capable, and she is even in organizing to hold on to the time. So finally, Europe fears a war that she herself has powered. NATO capitals are now taking seriously the possibility of a Russian threat if the Ukrainian front collapses. So for them, if the Ukrainian front collapses, Russia is going to attack Europe. So the war must continue only in Ukraine so that Ukraine alone is sacrificed. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that was it, the front page. I'll get back to you later with new news.